Can Mitchell Robinson's injury that's apparently now going to keep him out even longer until December, January at the earliest, can that actually be a blessing in disguise for the Knicks? Now that seems like an insane question to ask when you consider that so much of the Knicks' success and their identity at both ends is wrapped around having a traditional center rim protector on the floor for 48 minutes. I think it also feels like an insane question when you consider that the Knicks have been looking for more answers at the center position after losing Isaiah Hartenstein, where this Mitch news actually, creates more questions for them. So how could it be a blessing in disguise? Well, I'll tell you, because I think it's true. So first off, we all agree that, with the success the Knicks have had the last 2 years, like regular season success doesn't matter as much for the Knicks anymore. They've gotten to the second round the last 2 years. They go all in for Mikal Bridges. They have a win now team. Like, this team is built to try and succeed in the playoffs. I don't think it's crazy to say that they are on the short list of teams that really feel like they can compete for a championship. So when you consider that playoff success is the goal, and I am of the belief that succeeding in the playoffs in today's NBA, where so many different players can do so many different things, I think it's so important to basically just leave no stone unturned, to have as many cards in your back pocket to be able to play as possible, whether that's, so what I mean by that is some teams, maybe whatever your traditional lineup is, just being as flexible as possible. So maybe for some teams it's going super small, maybe other teams it's going big, it's playing 2 point guards, it's maybe playing different lineups that have had some success but maybe not so many minutes. It's just being able to say, okay, the playoffs are all about adjustments and adjusting to their adjustments and adjusting to those adjustments, and the best way to do that is to have as many cards to play as possible. And I think that's what this injury is going to force Tibbs to do, because as we all know, Tibbs likes to play traditional centers, but Hartenstein's gone now, obviously, and without Mitch, okay, yeah, Jericho and Precious Achiuwa, who are nice centers who definitely have their moments, but I don't they're also kind of up and down. And so you consider the guys that the Knicks have, where it's literally, you have OG, you have Randall, you have Bridges, you have Hart. You can create such incredibly versatile lineups at both end. And I think those are worth exploring. I think that's what this Mitch injury is going to do. It's going to force Tibbs to say, and to his credit, he actually did say this in an interview recently, talking about how, maybe losing Isaiah Hartenstein, and I guess he probably knew that Mitch wasn't going to be ready to start the season. He said that, maybe we're going to experiment with smaller lineups. And I think having those smaller lineups, and I think experimenting with them is good, because first of all, if it works, then you have this incredible lineup. But even if it doesn't, then at least you know. But if it works, I think it's just going to be, so incredibly useful, because when you put in that time and the reps, so that when the playoffs do arrive and there is a situation that calls for a smaller lineup, whether it's because the other team went small and the Knicks, more traditional lineups aren't working, or maybe the bigs are struggling, or maybe they're in foul trouble, or maybe Mitch is injured again and they don't really have much of a choice. I think, there might be a lot of growing pains with those lineups during the regular season, because it's just not something the Knicks have traditionally done ever. I don't know how many minutes Julius has played at the 5, and certainly I don't think he's played any minutes at the 5 alongside OG, and definitely not Bridges. But so there's going to be growing pains, but I think it could be so, beneficial to the Knicks to really try and go through those growing pains early, so that when the real stuff matters, when the playoffs come, and that's the stuff that matters, having this card in your back pocket to be able to play and being able to trust in it and have the confidence in it, knowing that you built in the reps and you got through the growing pains during the early parts of the regular season, I think is going to be so beneficial to the Knicks, especially because, if nothing else, I think that lineup can be really good. Sure, it might be a lineup out of necessity, but I also think it could be this sort of blessing in disguise of finding it and being oh wait, this is actually really great, and hey, maybe this might turn into our closing lineup at times, whether it's Brunson and then you have Bridges, OG, Hart, Randall, DiVincenzo, some combination of that, where it's very switchable. There's a lot of offensive versatility, there's spacing, and there's still a lot of size. OG and Randall are still really big. I think it could really be, I know I'm super bummed to have lost Hartenstein. Losing Mitch like this before the season even starts sucks, but maybe it does force the Knicks to sort of say, okay, maybe let's try and not change our identity, because their identity is still built around having that rim protector and that center, because they like to pound the glass at both ends. But it's okay, maybe let's find this other thing that we could do that could also, bring us some levels of success. Or maybe then they figure out hey, this is the lineup we want to go to, because nobody can really stop it, because there aren't many teams who can match the size, length, shooting, and versatility of the Knicks' small ball lineups. So I do think there might be growing pains with it, but I also think, again, when it comes to succeeding in the playoffs, you want to have as many options, as many go-to things as possible, things to turn to as possible. And I think this move, this injury is going to force the Knicks, and Tibbs in particular, to try that stuff out. And I think that's going to prove very beneficial in the long run, even when Mitch comes back and is hopefully healthy, for an extended, for the rest of the regular season and an extended playoff run.